From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
Sports Scene presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Sports Scene midweek online, Saturday on the radio from 10 to 11 on WPMH and TuneIn.com by typing WPMH in the search bar. Tell your friends about Sports Scene. Twitter at Greg Bick, and you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on GJBTV.com. Thank you to our military guest lineup presented by GJBTV.com, and hope everybody's being safe during this pandemic. Godspeed to everyone. Guest lineup presented by GJBTV.com. Great interviews, excellent guests, business segments, highlights, commentary. What tees me off? Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. We love our regulars, tourists who listen online and on the radio. Stay tuned.
Sports Scene, Hampton Roads' premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick, and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
Welcome back to Sports Scene. Our featured guest is Dave Johnson, the voice of the Washington Wizards, also part of the D.C. United soccer team, big voice up in the DMV. And, of course, we've been part of that family for the last 4 years with the Wizards here in Hampton Roads. Dave Johnson, always a pleasure.
Well, good to connect, and I think that's important right now is that we stay connected with one another and reach out to each other because we all are dealing with something that we don't have a playbook for, to use a sports cliche. We can't refer to a time like this in our history before that we say, well, this is what we did to get through this. So we're going to need each other to get through this period of time. And I think it's important to stay positive, but that's not easy. And everybody's got certainly worries and concerns, but we can mitigate those worries and concerns by reaching out to each other with the proper social distancing, obviously, but it's more than ever that I think people are going to need each other to somehow communicate together because we are obviously in for something that's going to take a while to sort out.
Absolutely. And, of course, social media is one thing, but we got to stay connected, talk to a senior citizen, talk to somebody you normally don't see. And this really gives us unprecedented time, really, where the United States is pretty much on pause. I mean, you can still do the essentials, but you got to be mindful of your health pretty much, and whether you're in your car or wherever you go, Dave.
Yeah, no, it really is something that I think it's been going on now, and oddly enough, or coincidentally, or it seemed to all coincide with the situation with the NBA, with Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz, and a positive test for coronavirus, and the dramatic stop to that game on that Wednesday night, March 11th, if my dates are correct, and then suddenly from that, things started getting canceled, and there started to be, if momentum's the right word, toward canceling more things, not just sporting events, and now we've reached the point, if you're in Maryland or Virginia, where it's just basically you're doing the essential things that look, we still all need to eat, and there might be medical situations that come up, so you just have to take whatever precaution, and I think you made a good point of reaching out to elderly people or people that, you might know that are alone by, the fact that they're living alone. It's a time that we need to stay connected because some of the things that gave us joy, i.e. sports, as we use as a diversion from the everyday stresses of life, that's, we can still talk about sports, we can still relive sports memories, and we're doing that on radio, playing classic games, or on television doing the same thing, but you certainly are. There's a void in a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely. Talking to Dave Johnson, the voice of the Wizards, and let's talk about the Wizards first before we talk about some other sports as well. kind of a shaky season. I mean, there was bits and pieces. You'd win some games that against teams that you weren't supposed to beat. Then other times you would lose some teams that you were supposed to beat. And of course, you did have a losing record before all this started, this COVID-19 in March. But what was does this give everybody a reset when things do come back? And maybe, if the things don't happen this season, what's your gut feeling just on the Wizards right now if we had to reset and start all over again based on the season?
Well, I think, look, the Wizards season was never going to be about the playoffs yet. When the play stopped, the Wizards were actually flirting with making a playoff run, because over the last 30 games, the Wizards were basically, I looked it up, 14-16. So basically a 500 team. And look, that doesn't earn you a parade and a victory celebration, but that shows growth and improvement, which they were showing. But this was a roster that at the time we shut down and had to pause the season, 10 of 17 players on the Wizards were 24 years or younger. So this was and no John Wall obviously playing this season. So this was not supposed to be a season. You don't go into a season and say, all right, we're not going to try to make the playoffs. You go into the season trying to win everything you can. But this was about developing players and getting better collectively as a team, and that's what was the storyline. And it was a rookie, Rui Hachimura, showing poise and experience beyond his age, or a Mo Wagner. He had not had much playing time before. Isaac Bonga had played 100 minutes with the Lakers last season. He had played 100 minutes after like 5 games with the Wizards. So it's this season. So it was about developing players, and I think the season had to stop and it had to be paused. But from a playing standpoint, the disappointing thing is you're really seeing the light bulb go on with so many players and continue to get brighter. I shouldn't say it went on like a switch, but this team was getting better. These players are getting better. In the final 20 games, who knows if the Wizards would have made the playoffs? Probably not. But you wanted to see just how strong they finished, and that was what was the joy of this team is they just gave it their all every night, and that's why they had games like the win over the Nuggets or the Heat or the Celtics or the Sixers. You can go right down the list.
I mean, most of the season's been played already. The Wizards were 24-40 with only 18 games left. So, I mean, most of the season's been done, and it would have been pretty much done here in a few days, when you talk about April. But it is what it is. 3 players, when you look back the last several years, Bogdanovich, Sato, and, of course, Kelly Oubre. And I was a big Kelly Oubre fan. I thought he was a little immature at times. But those are 3 guys, in my opinion, without Wall, could have helped the Wizards this year.
Well, I mean, again, they had kind of moved. The Bogdanovich thing was just, at the time when he was signed, they knew they probably couldn't re-sign, and he was about making the playoff push that year. The Kelly Oubre situation, it was just, if you're going to, make a trade, you to get something you have to get something, or to get something you have to give something. So. And I'm sorry, I forgot the third player you mentioned.
Bogdanovich, Sato, and Oubre.
And Sato Ramsey, look, was a great player for the Wizards, but it didn't, he just was not somebody that, again, and we're talking about the free agency, you've got to, the NBA is a salary cap league, like most leagues are, so you just can't have everybody you want to keep. And as younger players mature, develop, and have success, and then they're worth more money, you might not be able to fit everybody under the salary cap. So, I think I don't think that would have made a difference, though, in terms of the record necessarily. But again, this season was not about. The Wizards are already going through a period that, all right, we're gonna transition, and this is how we're going to look, and we're not. Marquee. The plan was, we've got John Wall, we've got Bradley Beal, we've got Markieff Morris, we've got Dwight Howard. Well, Dwight Howard didn't work out. You see how Dwight Howard's doing now. The
Sure.
Lakers, he's healthy, but he was injured with the Wizards, never played. Yeah. Had he played more than 8 games with the Wizards, the season would have been a different story. that group would have been a different story. And that's just a Wizards thing. It's a theme through all the sports. Is if people stay healthy and a group stays healthy and is given a chance to play together, then good things can happen. But that group that I just outlined there, we never really got a chance to see what that group was going to look like or be, because primarily Dwight Howard didn't play. So, okay, what you have to do is in all sports again, and with all teams, you have to say, all right, this is what we have. This is what we're going to reboot. We're committed to our young players. The development of a Thomas Bryant, how he's come along as a center. We know we've got, once John comes back, we know we've got Bradley Beal. He's as elite as it gets, and he, sees what the Wizards are doing. That's why he signed a contract extension when he didn't have to before the start of the season. And he knew before the start of this season, this was not going to be a winning season. This was not going to be a playoff season. But, he should be applauded for knowing, if you want to get to a special place and create a special team, you've got to go on a journey. And he showed that commitment to go on that journey, and he backed it up with his play. And again, his numbers this year should be applauded even more, because he's doing those numbers even though he's doubled and triple teamed half the time.
All right, we're going to
take half the time, most of the time.
All right, we're going to take a short break, come back with more of Dave Johnson for part 2 of our interview on Sports Scene after these messages.
Sports and Imports, located at 1322 Transylvania Avenue in Chesapeake. Sports and Imports specializes in all European models without the European price. ASE certified and Bosch certified. Don't waste time and money guessing what the problem is. Sports and Imports can pinpoint the problem and fix it the first time. Make an appointment today. Financing is available. Visit sportsandimports.net or call 545-9394. Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
Welcome back to part 2 of Sports Scene at Greg Bick on Twitter, and Dave Johnson's our featured guest, the voice of the Wizards on the radio for over 20 years. Dave, go ahead and give us your social media handles.
It's at Dave J Sports on Twitter. It's the best way to connect with you, at Dave J Sports.
Very good, very good. And, one thing, get your opinion, because you do a lot on Twitter, especially during the game's #radio party. And, of course, we look forward to that coming back, is that Twitter seems like it's really good for business people, media, and so forth. Fans are into it, and, of course, they're getting into it more and more and more. Facebook is more of the social, a lot of women are on Facebook, and they'll post a picture. But Twitter seems to be, the best way to connect during radio games. Is that still pretty accurate?
Well, once upon a time we blogged during games, because that was the late part of last decade because that was a high-tech way of doing it. But I think with Twitter, you can have back and forth instant, communication with fans, and that's been a great way of why we've used it to integrate with the radio. Radio is the most personal medium. Somebody can tweet us, and right away we see it during a commercial break or whatever. We can respond, and that makes it more of a active experience than a passive experience. So. It's like all things with in moderation, right?
Yes.
Social media is a good thing when you use it to connect with people. You can get information. If you spend too much time on it, it'll probably drive you crazy. But that's like watching too much TV or whatever. But I never in my broadcast career, I never thought it'd be such a big part of what we do, because it is media, and I'm not just saying a big part of the broadcast, but where do we find out sometimes when trades happen in sports or breaking news? It ends up getting released on Twitter first. And needless to say, when I started this business, there wasn't even a Twitter. So if you told me one day I'd be using a phrase, so-and-so just tweeted out, I would have said you're crazy, but that's the world we live in right now.
There's a big pause button. I mean, even the NFL usually does their schedule in April, their TV schedule. That's going to be delayed. And every sport, baseball, tennis, golf, soccer, Olympics, so forth and so on, Wimbledon, tennis events. Everything is on pause, delayed, or postponed, just like people's businesses are around the country. Every state is different. That's the only thing I'm knocking on CNN is that, they tend to focus a lot on the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I get that, Florida. But the people in Tennessee and Wyoming and Hawaii and Alaska, are totally in a different world compared to what's going on in the DMV or New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Sure, we all got to be proactive, but each state is totally different. And of course, you got to be, mindful of your health every day.
Yeah, well, no, and I think that's why, the way our country is set up is that so much, powers to do certain things, are given to the states because we're you could fit the entire country of England in the state of Alabama, for example. So we've got 50 of these things spread out over immense population. So that's why the governors in this situation are very much on the front line. And I've heard people criticize, the federal government. Well, the federal government should support, but at the end of the day, people in Washington can't realistically or practically, execute what needs to be done in Texas or what needs to be done in Wyoming or whatever, just by pure logistics. It's not around the corner. You can't be on the, as a federal government, you need to support all these states and do what you can. And I think that's what, everybody's trying to do. It's look, there's not even the right word for what we're going through. A difficult situation. That doesn't do it justice. It's more than difficult. But that's why, again, it gets back to, we can't worry about, the politics of it. What we need to worry about is each other.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Is that this is just by virtue of these shutdown orders in Virginia and Maryland and other states that, this is not going to be fixed by the weekend. This is not like a blizzard where they've got the roads closed and the power's back on, or the roads plowed and the power's back on, so we're okay. I've never been through this kind of situation, and I don't think anybody else has, where, suddenly you're forced not to go to the office or the stadium or the arena for 2 weeks, and, buddy, again, that's you just count your blessings, and right now the blessing number one is your health.
Right, and of course, even with sports continuing, maybe down the road might be no fans for a year. Who knows what's going to happen? America is not used to being on the pause button. I was telling a friend earlier, it's almost like, kind of back in college. You'd go to the grocery store, you'd get your pizza, you get your food, you go to the pharmacy, and you get back to your dorm room, you go study, and it's pretty much like what everybody's trying to do. Of course, we still have to buy groceries and do the essentials, but America's not used to the pause button, and that's what's going on, and we're only in April.
Yeah, no, it's, and it's, the problem with that pause button is there's such a number of people that not only not being used to being on a pause button, but really need to have that go button because they need to work and they need that income, but they can't.
Yeah.
And so that's why we through churches, through whatever mechanisms, food banks. We've been trying to raise money here in D.C. for various food banks because there's going to be, that's where you can't, as individuals, we all have to decide, all right, well, how much can I help my other fellow man? That's what it comes down to, because that's how you're going to be able to solve problems on a quicker basis. The government can help and will help, but just by virtue of the fact that it's a government, it's a bigger mechanism. And look, if you want to, people are applying for unemployment and loans, et cetera, and that's a longer process to get all that done, and all that needs to be done. But what I'm saying is, in conjunction with that, we as individuals also have to help up and to these various charities that can give, shall we say, faster help and aid, while we also get support from the various governments.
Dave, like a lot of us in the media, you have several different jobs. Tell us which ones you're currently still active with. Of course, you're active with all of them, but the Wizards, of course, are on the pause. DC United is on the pause, but you do anchoring and other things. Tell us everything that you're doing that's still active today.
Well, actually, everything is still active. That's the irony, is because I'm still doing WTOP in Washington, D.C. every morning. I'm still doing some anchoring from my home on NBC4. From the Wizards, we have we just launched on Monday the Washington Wizards Podcast Network with 3 different podcasts, including Full Court Press, which is available now with I'm doing with Glenn Constantine. We had head coach Scott Brooks, a 20-minute interview that touches on so many things, and we really enjoy that. We invite people, however you get your podcast, to find that. It's available on Wizards Radio 24/7, but all the Spotify and SoundCloud, all the places, Google Play, all the places that people access podcasts, you can access Full Court Press because people are we're all stuck at home. We're looking for content of our favorite teams, our favorite passions, because we can't go to the games. So, we've been busy trying with the Wizards to provide as much content to our Wizards fans so they stay connected. And again, this gets back to when I've reached out to fans, personally. I've had a lot of personal interactions with fans, and that's part of it, because you develop a relationship with the listeners or the viewers or whatever it is, and all of a sudden the traditional games stop, but that doesn't mean the interaction has to stop. So we're playing a classic game today on Wizards Radio 24/7, which is available on the Washington Wizards app and also on TuneIn. So the desire for content is stronger than ever because people are looking for things in some cases. And it's the same with DC United. We just did a podcast the other day where we had Donovan Pines doing a podcast. He's one of the players. Later today, I'm going to interview Ish Smith. About a week ago, I thought Zoom was a money transfer, and now it's the way that we're doing interviews, video conferencing, and it seems like everybody's Zooming, so to speak. And so that's that'll probably be one of the takeaways out of this whole situation we're going through, is suddenly we become a Zoom nation, or it seems that way. I just got off a Zoom video conference with Nicholas Backstrom, who was updating us on the Capitol situation. So I think from the media standpoint, I'm blessed that still very busy but glad to be busy, because it is about communicating and spreading the word. And I think it'd be a really bad situation if all of a sudden, because there's a pause in the season, then all of a sudden there's also a pause in that interaction and communication. And to the credit of every sports team that I'm aware of, that's not been the case. There's been the desire to reach out to the fans. How can we help? How can we get involved? How can we raise money? DC sports broadcasters, and still going on. If you go to Cameo / Dave J Sports, I'll do a personalized video for you, and it's only $25. But all of that money goes to Martha's Table, the DC Central Kitchen, the Capital Area Food Bank. So this is what I'm talking about. We have this time. So let's find ways we can use this time, because there's the need out there is real. The help out there is real. The need to help is real. So that's what's keeping me busy right now. And I know at last check we had raised through the Cameo, through the 14 DC area sports broadcasters on Cameo. I think several $1,000s, like $5,000 or $6,000, have been raised in a week for these food banks. They need it because they're feeding a lot of people.
Thank you very much, Dave Johnson. Of course, you're exactly right. You talk about all the content we have available with the internet. I mean, you take away the internet. This happened 20 years ago. All we would have is basic TV and radio. Now, that's enough, sure, But, I mean, with social media and websites and the internet, people are still staying active and busy because they can do their consumer banking or listen to sports. I mean, who would have thought that ESPN Classic would be as relevant as it is in 2020? Dave Johnson, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon once everything gets back to normal.
Look forward to it. Stay safe and take care of each other.
You too, my friend. All the best and health and happiness to you. Dave Johnson, the voice of the Wizards, and a lot more. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Email bicogb@hotmail.com. Now back to Greg Bicouvaris in the Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com studios.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. It's a pleasure to talk to our monthly featured guest, George McClain, the owner of the Marksman and Newport News. George, welcome.
Thank you, Greg. I hope everyone is staying safe today and staying out of the virus's way.
Yes, and that's going to be our main topic for the first segment or two. And, of course, we talked about different gun clubs the last show. And, folks, just a reminder, while you're at home or on the road, you can type in George McClain Sports Scene and hear any archive show that we've done in the history. And, George, very important show right now because gun shops like yourself around the country are doing pretty well because people need ammunition and the retail side is still open.
Well, the retail side it is open. For those who don't know, by the governor's order, we had to shut the shooting range down, but that's not the only operation that we have in the business. So the retail side, as you said, is still functioning, and we have to still abide by the no more than 10 patrons, on the premises at one time. And you have to maintain the 6-foot distance between. But now, because we also have a training contract with the City of Newport News, if we're having one of those particular security classes, which is essential to their operation and for the people to stay properly certified, we give them, of those 10 patrons, up to 5 students. So, if you come to the door, and the door will be locked, by the way, but we are open. We have some modified hours. I'll go over all that when you would like that, and the changes that we have. But as we have room for the next guest or customer coming in, then we'll allow that customer to come in.
George, I'm going to give a lot of the elected officials the benefit of the doubt because each state is totally different. The only thing a lot of people are watching CNN and Fox News Channel now, and the only thing I'm knocking about some of these television networks are that each state is different. West Virginia is different from Tennessee. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut are like Europe almost. There's a melting pot of the entire world in the state of New York. But even upstate New York is different from Manhattan. So we're getting a lot of mixed messages, and people are blaming some of the politicians, including the president. But he's learning as we're all learning because this has never happened before.
Well, that's right. No one... Well, I don't want to say no one alive today has experienced it. There's probably somebody, centurions, 100 plus, that maybe was alive back during 1918, with that particular Spanish flu crisis back then. But that would have to be a handful. So almost anyone involved in the decision making process in politics and in business, no one was alive back then. So you're exactly right. So we're all learning together, but as you have pointed out, and I can't fault people for going this route and taking this. We are different. Each state is different, but it's because each state is in a different physical location, and where you've got. I think I read this morning, Wyoming was the only state that has not had a death that is virus related, so they may have different mitigation or avoidance procedures than I'm sure than what New York does, which is tremendous right now with the speed of the infection, and I think Florida is going to be right behind them because a lot of people running down there, and I think for the most part, everyone just really does need to stay home. And I say that and say, well, that's your customers. Well, the governor, who was not of my party, and
ditto on that, George.
Yeah, he says, it's everyone. This is a time of sacrifice, and it really is. And we just hope that everyone is still in business when this is all over with. And God only knows, where the end of it is going to be. We don't know that we've hit the peak. The president says, within the next 2 weeks you're going to see it. But then I read reports that it is possible that the U.S. could be looking at 100,000 to 240,000 deaths that are virus related. Those are scary numbers.
Yes.
And if you've got underlying conditions, you need to go out of your way to stay out of the mainstream of things and protect yourself as much as you can.
Yep, and of course, Google the COVID website, fatigue, shortness of breath, and those are two of the main things right there as well. And of course, underlying issues like George said. But George made a good point about Wyoming, but I haven't heard much about Hawaii or Alaska either. Alaska is so far off the grid. That's almost a different country altogether. And Hawaii pretty much is too. Neither really are part of the mainland, but each state is different.
I have not. I'm like you. I hadn't heard much with Alaska. Maybe it's so cold up there that the virus can't survive. I did hear that Hawaii did have a death, and it was an elderly, individual. I think I hesitate to say it in a nursing home. I don't think it was a nursing home, but I think it was for older residents. So, and that was fairly recent. So that was everyone's got the virus present in their state, but obviously, some states have a lot lesser mortality rate than others, which is obviously a good thing.
Talking to George McClain from the Marksman as well, and not to mention as well, dry cough, shortness of breath, fever, fatigue. Those are the 4 signs right there. But this seems to be, evolving daily what the symptoms are. But it does seem like the root of it is respiratory, George.
Well, it is, and if you look at the how it runs through the body, it almost will always in those who have weak immune systems turn into pneumonia, and this is a viral pneumonia versus a bacterial pneumonia, and they're testing a few things with this malaria drug, but they haven't officially come out and say, okay, this will treat it, this will kill it, and that's the scary part. If you get it, then if you've got underlying conditions, you're immunocompromised. That's the scary thing. And the worst part I think about it, this time of year with the pollen in the air, this is hay fever season. So in a lot of the people that have those very type of allergies, that's more than just the regular allergy. There's some people that just seem like they're extremely allergic, and so their symptoms that they experience are sometimes 10 times worse than the normal person with hay fever. So you can duplicate those same symptoms of the COVID-19 virus and not be that at all, and then conversely, you could be totally asymptomatic and have COVID-19 and be a carrier, not even realize it. So I think that's where a lot of folks, when they start running a fever, do you need to get tested? Probably. I guess at some point, especially if you're older and if you have these compromises to your system. If you're young, as long as you're breathing okay, you may not want to go out in the public and risk spreading, if that's what it is, to somebody else. But it's I tell you, it's a toss of the coin. And I don't you can listen to one expert, so called, and they advise one type of action, and listen to another, they advise something else. For instance, wearing a face mask. And I heard a week or so ago that says unless you are sick with the virus, you should not wear a face mask. I look at some stuff this morning that says that everybody should be wearing face masks. So there really is no standardization on how we need to proceed.
And I don't think many people are wearing face masks around their home, and that's where they're spending most of their time at. But when they go to the big box stores, the grocery stores, probably only 10% still are wearing a mask. Like you said, it's changing all the time. But you made a good point about pollen season, because people do get the sniffles in the morning because of pollen and allergies. I mean, allergy season is a season all into its own. It evolves all 4 seasons. And, of course, we're just still coming off winter. And right now it still feels like winter some days. So there's a lot of mix. And just because you sneeze or even cough because you have something in the air doesn't mean you've got this. But, of course, you got to be proactive with your health.
Well, that's exactly right. And you have to kind of do your own deductive reasoning. You know, have you been out of the country, in the last month? Have you been around someone who has been out of the country in the last month? And, now you start developing some of these symptoms, even if you know that you have allergies to, pollen, and, this time of year you're going to get that kind of stuff. But if you're someone who hasn't experienced any of the other contact stuff, you've not been around large groups, you haven't met or been with someone who has been out of the country, you may still just be suffering from your typical, hay fever, symptoms. But, then again, who knows?
Right, because I think everybody knows, the adults especially, kids don't, but if you got a fever or a temperature, you can pretty much tell by your forehead, sweating. Yep. There's a lot of factors, and of course, if you don't, you pretty much know your body. That's the good thing about adults. As far as the retail side, and I like how around the country the gun enthusiasts have rallied around the retail side, and of course, it's federal, right, George? The gun shops are not part of the state protocol, correct?
Well, I would like to think that DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has made recommendations that shooting ranges not be closed, that they be considered an essential business. But that didn't affect Governor Northam's decision. He went ahead and closed them down. So, I don't know that any of the rest of it is federally regulated as far as dictating that you're essential and staying open, but just because we're in Virginia, our governor did say that if you have a brick and mortar retail store establishment, that you can remain open as long as you observe, the criteria that he laid out, which was no more than 10 patrons, and that you basically deep clean, increase your cleaning, disinfection of the fixtures in the store. And you maintain the social distance requirements of 6 feet between customers. So we do that, and and we're still selling guns. All of that obviously is federally regulated. So all the paperwork still has to be done. Still have to do the background check. Run through the computer like we always do. The issue that we're having right now, because there is great demand, is getting product from suppliers. And they're trying to meet as much as they can. They're overwhelmed themselves, and so what we see, even when the product is in stock, that their shipping department falls behind. So normally, if you come in and order a firearm that we don't have in stock, that we would normally be able to get in 2 or 3 days in a normal time, could take a week or somewhat longer now to get in, just because the shipping departments of our wholesalers are just running that much behind schedule, just because of the demand that they have.
Yeah, exactly right. The good thing about your store is it's front and center, and your employees can see pretty much everybody. The door is locked, and you can, you have good visibility as far as limitation of personnel inside the building. So you guys are perfectly set up. Your parking spots are spread out. So really, you're in a good position, and people need their guns, and people need their ammunition.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And when I do want to point out, when you come to the store, to the Marksman, knock on the door, because like I said, the door's going to be locked. And that's to abide by restricting the number of folks in the place. If we're at our limit and somebody else just walks in, then we're all going to have to stop what we're doing and tell them, no, you can't come in, get out. So we just lock it. Of course, the lights are on. You'll be able to see in. Just knock on the door and somebody will, if we have that vacancy to where someone can come in, they'll come and open the door and let you in. Otherwise, they'll tell you, probably hold up a finger or something and have you to just wait until a customer leaves, and then we'll get the next customer in.
Yeah, I want to leave it with this too, and you see this a lot on Facebook. You guys have a Facebook page, The Marksman does. Google the website, of course, the Newport News. Of course, George will tell us the new hours here in just a moment for the time being, but of course that can change pretty much by the week. That one woman put on Facebook, he says, I've got a gun. Anybody comes to my property, obviously you're going to face consequences. She didn't say shoot or anything or threaten anybody, but this is a time where the criminal element does take advantage of the vulnerable, whether it's the personal property, home, car, and so forth.
Well, that's right. Everyone just needs to be careful, remain compliant with the laws. Get yourself educated as to what the laws are. If you have not done that, you need to. A lot of folks think that you can shoot anybody that comes into your home, and
Nope.
The law says you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain circumstances that have to be made, and we don't have time to go through all of that right now. But you can do your own research and read and find out what remedies that you have to protect your property, what those are, and you probably need to do it. So, and before I forget, I will mention our store hours. We're opening still at 10 o'clock, but we're closing at 6 versus 8, and we're closing all day on Sunday, which normally we would be open. All the concealed classes for concealed the concealed permit, handgun permit training class that we have, those are all canceled for the foreseeable time until this is over with, where we can get the classrooms full again. As soon as we're permitted, we will start that up. But we want to make sure that we're as safe as we can be for ourselves and our employees and our customers. We all want to have maintain healthy families. So I think that's got to be at the top of the list right now.
George McClain from the Marksman, thank you. All the best to your family and your employees, health and happiness, and let's look forward to a solid April and even a better May.
Thank you very much, Greg. You guys stay safe, stay well, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. George McClain right there from the Marksman. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
Highlights, GJBTV.com, HRSMHOF.com, HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com. Two big announcements. The Hampton Roads Sports and Media Hall of Fame will be postponed to a later date, and the Newport News Greek Festival will be postponed to August. For more, go to HRSMHOF.com and NewportNewsGreekFestival.org. GJBTV.com. Click the YouTube link for archive shows and audio and video. Our question of the day presented by the Newport News Greek Festival to Colleen. Colleen, how has this pandemic affected your family and the radio family?
Well, it has changed our schedule up a little bit, where we're having to work a little bit from home, having to school my daughter, that kind of thing.
Very nice. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. And folks, we've had a lot of serious stuff going on in the month of March and April and even before that. And as we're going into April, and still Easter season coming up, let's talk about something sweet with Brenda Tusing from the Royal Chocolate. Brenda, how are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you, Greg. I hope you are as well.
Yep. The first question I'm going to ask you, like I ask everybody else, how has the pandemic affected you business-wise and personally?
Business-wise, it's we've been in business almost 14 years.
Sure.
And we've seen the recession, we've seen a variety of things, but nothing prepares you, absolutely nothing prepares you for this pandemic. You don't know what to do. It's uncharted ground. People are afraid. It's just a very, very difficult time for every person and certainly every business. We have done the best we can to sort of pull ourselves together. We've shortened our store hours. We are still open. We are allowed to be open. We are allowed to have a maximum of 10 people in the store. We have 2 staff. So that means 8 people in the store. And we do a lot of curb service. You can call us, pay for what you want. We'll bring it to your car when you pull up. We offer half-price deliveries. Delivery is normally $16. We're offering it for $8 to anywhere in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, or Portsmouth right now. You can come into the store. We're insisting on social distancing, of course. Our seating area is not available for sitting and lingering. And we're doing a lot of, we're a food service business, so we do a lot of cleaning anyway, but we are just, diligent, super diligent about it now, cleaning the outside, the door handles when people come in, the inside spaces. We're just very, very diligent, both for ourselves and for our customers. And, we have staff that prefers not to work right now, and that is absolutely fine. They will not lose their jobs. They'll be invited back, certainly, when we have more hours. But we totally understand everybody is taking this in a very individual way, and we certainly respect that.
Right, because it affects everything. Whether you go down to the ocean front, you're only allowed to walk or fish or surf, and that's it. You can't swim, you can't congregate. But the thing is, it's not a double standard. But when you walk into a big box store, or let's just say a grocery store, there's way more than 10 people in there. So you got to be careful no matter where you go.
You do, and I think everybody limits. I have limited my comings and goings, and there's frankly not that many places to go anymore. All the restaurants are closed, and that sort of thing. Meetings aren't being held. Social gatherings are postponed or canceled. So everybody has to make their own decision for themselves. And I like with our staff. I mean, Terry, my business partner, is in there. Janice is our full-time manager. She's typically there. We will have a staff or two occasionally when needed. And we are still seeing, customers come in. It's Easter. People want Easter baskets. They want the bunnies. They want us to, personalize the cream and peanut butter filled eggs for them. We sell a lot of apples right now. It's a little bit of a comfort food. It's planning ahead for Easter, which is going to get here, pandemic or not. And it's gifting. So, we were offering different specials and things like that in the store. And again, if you want something and you're not comfortable coming in, we're fine with that. Call us. We'll bring it to your car. We are we just do absolutely respect everybody's sense of space right now.
Well, we all have to adapt and be flexible, especially at times like this, talking to Brenda Tusing from the Royal Chocolate. And as you know, Brenda, you're part of the retail groups around Hampton Roads.
Yes.
Some businesses will not survive this, especially restaurants.
Many will not, and it pains me to even say that, because I know a lot of these people. I know what goes into a business. I think two things. I think that there will be businesses certainly that won't make it, and I think that that's very, very sad. And I also think that this time I see a tremendous amount of recognition for small business, and I think when we come through this, and we will, the people that have managed to survive or can come back from it will be even stronger, because I see our customers. It's very it's a very heartfelt expression of thanks for us for having been there. There's a lot of appreciation going on for what you've done through the years. It's a very emotional time in a lot of ways to see our customers come out and buy something. Maybe it's a gift card to use later, and support us. They want to support us now because they want us to succeed. Small business is a very tenuous operation. We don't have any deep pockets to rely on, and many of us function very day to day. So it's extremely stressful, but I would hope that everybody in this community recognizes what the small business offers and continues to support us in any way they can now, and certainly when it's over, to come out in droves and shop with us.
Right, theroyalchocolate.com. And a lot of businesses that are organized like yours will do well because people still can come in, get their dessert, their sweets, their beverages, and get out,
Right.
without too much drama going on. But some restaurants, I'm hearing this, they're tired of huffing and puffing, going from the kitchen, walking down the hallway, getting to the car, and trying to get the order right. Because as you know, especially in the restaurant business, Brenda, to-go orders really never go well, even when it's normal times.
Yeah.
So right now they're under stress.
Yeah,
and
it's a tough act.
Yes,
it's a really
it is.
tough act. I mean, we just on the personal level, I've been home for 5 weeks recovering from knee replacement surgery anyway. So I'm sort of out of the craziness. My husband and I were laughing. I'm like self-quarantined even before it was cool.
Well, that's a good thing, right?
In a way, the knee not so much. But anyway.
Leave Brenda alone.
Right now.
Yeah.
But we have been ordering from, our local food restaurants that, we typically would go out every Friday night, and now we don't. And so we try to be supportive and do takeout. But I think you're right. It's an avenue for keeping the lights on right now, but it's stressful, very hard. It's not the business model they prepared for.
No, the huffing and puffing and the running of the marathon to bring the food out. But like you said, a lot of the businesses, again, go back to restaurants, have had to lay people off just because they're not getting the foot traffic they normally would. But again, John Taffer said recently on an interview that the spacing will be important even when it gets back to normal, that we've developed some of these good habits and continue with them.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I think so, too. I think I have my favorite thought process is that nothing's all good or all bad. And I think in this time of what appears to be very bad, I look at what's good. And you're right. The new things that we develop now, the new habits, certainly the new awareness. I mean, and for some of us, frankly, in the small business, it will be this simple thought. Hey, guess what? A pandemic can hit. Something horrible can come along, and I need more money in reserves. You may just function differently as a business when all this is said and done. So, and the good that comes out of it, I firmly believe, will be a new welcoming of the small business and a new appreciation for the neighbors and the communities that did their very best, like the restaurants, to stay afloat and stay alive.
Right, because even the banks, pretty much just drive-through or a Chick-fil-A drive-through, but America's never been on pause, so that's the biggest thing we're trying to get used to. But I'll say this, and I really heartfelt to all the businesses, but, some businesses like yours that are organized will do well no matter what because people can still come in, but the travel agencies are taking a huge hit right now, and hotels, and that honeymoon to Italy's got a totally different meaning now.
Yes. Yeah, everything, the travel industry, everything is so hurt. It's so crippled by this, and hopefully, maybe it'll weed out, but the things that come back hopefully will come back strong. But I think it's going to be a long haul before everybody. For us, we're open now, but to be very honest with you, I feel like we're one or two, announcements from Governor Northam, and we'll be closed. Or we simply won't be able to survive on the amount of money we're bringing in each day. It won't make sense anymore. So there may come a point where we're not able to stay open. We are trying to, but, and that point has to be a decision for every business. Does this make sense for me or not?
Right, because you saw some businesses that closed. Our good friends at CP Shuckers, they closed before this started. They just didn't want to deal with it. They couldn't. Yeah. They didn't have the energy or the desire to deal with this. And that to each his own. And I'm a firm believer.
It is. You're right. I think we all have to totally respect one another's decisions in this moment in time, whether to stay or to go. You're never privy to the other person and what they're dealing with. You're only privy to what you're dealing with and what you can handle or not handle. So we're handling all we can. We're hoping we have a store stocked with Easter things, so please come shop for Easter with us. But yeah, we've got great. We can even do chocolate fondue to go. And that's just such a popular item, the melted chocolate and the things to dip in it. We sell our chocolate, our Belgian chocolate Calais, that you can take home and melt those down and dip whatever you've got in the refrigerator in that. So there's a lot of options that we offer. We're trying to be very accommodating. We're always accommodating, but, especially so right now.
And you guys are the best in hospitality. I'll say one more thing and then ask you what you got in your store. But you look at a business like Gordon Biersch, they're totally different because their rent was so high. Just to open the lights every single day compared to a smaller business that can afford to shut it down for a few months. So everybody's got a totally different needs here.
They do, and it's all comparable. I mean, they have bigger rents and bigger, but then they have a bigger dollar amount to work with every month than a smaller business does. So it's all kind of relative. You know what else it is about too, and I've seen this, it's about your relationships that you've developed, like you said, with the rent, with your vendors, with your customers. But those relationships right now are so valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Because everything that I see is, hey, we're in this together, we're going to get through it, and we're going to work it out. And nobody is coming at me in an ugly fashion. I may not be able to pay all my bills this month, but they know that. And they know that I'm a business of my word, and they will get paid.
Yeah, because...
and it may be slower, but we're going to be okay.
Right, and you're consistent. You got good stuff. You got a good staff, and 14 years. That speaks volumes, no matter what city you're in. Right. So, what have you got in the store right now?
Oh, bunnies, and more bunnies.
Cool.
We have the most beautiful gift baskets, Greg. They're absolutely stunningly gorgeous. You would be happy to give that to any man, woman, or child. We do the cream-filled eggs. We've got a variety of flavors. And as I'm speaking now, you can always call the store and say, hey, Brenda mentioned bunnies. What's she talking about? What sizes? How much are they? We're happy to help you over the phone.
Yeah, very good. Brenda, all the best to you and your husband and your family. And we look forward to talking to you under better conditions in May.
Okay, sounds great. You take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Very good. Brenda Tusing.
Thank you.
From the Royal Chocolate. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
All right, time now for What Tees Me Off, folks. A lot of things what tees me off, and of course, we're all sick of this COVID. We want it to go away. Godspeed, health, happiness to everyone all around the world. We've never seen America or the world on pause like this, but of course, faith, family, health, you have to have all three. Other things that tee me off is fear, anger, hatred, suffering. Of course, the COVID. Let's avoid all those. Let's focus on peace, health, happiness, and God's word, whatever religion you come from. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM.
I want to thank our guests today, Dave Johnson, the voice of the Wizards, George McClain, and Brenda Tusing, @GregBic on Twitter. That's GregBic. Connect there. Also, GJBTV.com. Hit the YouTube section as well as the contact section on GJBTV.com, HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com, and HRSMHOF.com. For Colleen, please stay safe, everybody. I'm Greg Bicouvaris. We'll talk to you soon.